Today, we're going to dive into something pretty powerful and, honestly, pretty unsettling. We're looking at the parallels being drawn between two moments in American history, the 19th century Trail of Tears and the mass detention of migrants happening right now. It's a connection that really asks us to look hard at who we are and who we've been.
So just look at these two images for a second. On the left, you've got a depiction of the Cherokee removal back in 1838. And on the right, a modern ICE detention facility. Now, they're separated by almost 200 years, but these images force us to ask a really provocative question. Are these just echoes of each other? Is history actually repeating itself?
To really get this comparison, to feel it, we need to ground it in the human experience.
I want you to picture two mothers. The first one is a Cherokee woman in 1838. She's clutching her child as soldiers with bayonets are forcing her out of the only home she's ever known. Now, picture another mother, today, huddling with her child behind the cold wire of a detention center. The argument at the very heart of this explainer is that the tears shed on that dusty trail to Oklahoma, well, they're not so different from the cries being heard in border camps today.
So, to really hear that echo, you have to understand the original sound, right? Let's start with the historical precedent, the Trail of Tears.
You know, the Trail of Tears wasn't some random, tragic accident. This was official U.S. government policy. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 basically gave the president the green light to forcibly kick indigenous peoples off their ancestral lands in the Southeast and march them to a place called Indian Territory, which we now know as Oklahoma.
And the scale of this was just staggering. We're talking about a period of a couple of decades where the government systematically uprooted and drove about 100,000 Native Americans, people from the Cherokee, Muskogee Creek, Choctaw, and so many other nations westward.
And this forced march, it came at an absolutely devastating human cost. For the Cherokee Nation alone, it's estimated that more than 4,000 people died. That's nearly a fifth of their entire population, gone. They died from disease, from starvation, from just pure exhaustion. And the Muskogee Creek Nation lost another 3,500 people during their removal.
But you know, numbers can feel abstract. This quote from a Cherokee person who was there, who lived through it, it just hits different. Women cry, children cry, many men cry, many days pass, and people die very much. This wasn't just a policy, it was a march of death.
Okay, now let's fast forward to today. Let's look at the modern context and see how that history connects to the sheer scale of the U.S. immigration detention system.
On any given day in recent years, the number of migrants locked up in ICE custody has soared past 61,000. That is a historic high. We are talking about a system of mass confinement that is operating on a scale we have never seen before. And this didn't just happen. It's been fueled by a massive amount of money. I mean, one law alone poured an extra $45 billion into detention and enforcement over just 3 years. That funding created what some have called a deportation machinery of historic proportions.
And this part is absolutely crucial to understand. Who are the people being detained? Well, the data is pretty clear. Nearly 3/4 of the people in ICE custody have no criminal convictions at all. They're being held in what are basically prisons for a civil violation.
So with that context, let's put these two moments in history side by side and look at some of these really disturbing parallels. Here's a big one. In both cases, these actions were carried out under the color of law. The Indian Removal Act gave the government the legal justification it needed to uproot entire nations. Today, the Immigration and Nationality Act provides the legal authority for mass detention. It's just a stark reminder that what's legal isn't always what's right. Then there's the language, the rhetoric used to justify it all. Back in the 1830s, you had a U.S. officer describing indigenous people as a savage presence that would pollute our soil. Fast forward to recent years, and you hear official rhetoric calling migrants aliens who infest the country. It's the same playbook. Dehumanize a group of people to make extreme policies sound more acceptable.
And this might be the most heartbreaking parallel of all: state-sanctioned family separation. During the removal, soldiers tore Cherokee families apart. In 2018, under the zero-tolerance policy, the U.S. government systematically took thousands of migrant children, even babies and toddlers, from their parents' arms at the border. This quote, it's actually from a transcript of an audio recording that was secretly made inside a border facility. And it's just the sound of these terrified little kids crying, screaming for their parents. Papa, Papa. It's a sound that made the abstract policy of family separation devastatingly real.
And sometimes, you don't even have to look for a metaphor.
The historical echo is literal. It's in the same exact place. In 2019, the government planned to detain migrant children at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. This is the very same Army base that was used as an internment camp for Apache prisoners of war, including the great leader Geronimo, and was later used to imprison Japanese Americans during World War II. The ground itself has memory.
So, in response to all these echoes of the past, many people who remember this history, whose communities lived it, are now speaking out, and they're creating this really powerful coalition of conscience.
Take this quote from Sam Strong of the Red Lake Nation. He was reacting to a report that ICE agents in Minneapolis had detained U.S. citizens who are members of the Oglala Sioux tribe, apparently just because of how they looked. And he said the first people of Minnesota are being detained for being immigrants. It's just so wrong. You can just feel the painful irony in his words.
And he's not alone, not by a long shot. The National Congress of American Indians officially condemned the family separations. The Cherokee Nation, the very people who walked the Trail of Tears, offered aid to unaccompanied migrant children. And survivors of the Japanese-American internment camps have been protesting, holding signs that say never again means never again for anyone.
And this is just stunning. I want you to listen to these two voices separated by almost 200 years. An oral history from an Ottawa ancestor recalls, "We were treated like animals, herded and driven, our hearts broken." Then in 2019, a Honduran mother in ICE custody told a reporter, "They treat us like animals. My heart is broken being separated from my son." The exact same words. The language of suffering, it seems, is universal and timeless.
So we're left with the central question this whole comparison forces us to confront. When the cries of a Cherokee mother on a frozen trail and the cries of a child in a modern detention center start to sound like one continuous call for humanity, we have to ask, will the United States live up to its highest ideals, or will it just keep reliving its worst sins?